Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. As I said in the introduction, I'm here with Jack Randall, who is the co-founder of RNDL. Hi, Jack. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And we've known each other, a good couple of years. And at the beginning, we all knew RNDL as a home fragrance brand, but it came from quite an artistic perspective, didn't it? Which came from your dad. So what sort of influence did he have on the brand, and what was the inspiration from the get-go?
Yeah, so my father was an artist, and I used to
Right.
sort of sit in his art studios, just watching him paint and trying to do my homework. And there was sort of incense burning in the
Yeah.
studio, and it was kind of that sort of multi-sensory kind of feel. And I think I inherited the creativeness from my father, but
Yeah.
I'm not great at painting, so I had to sort of position myself elsewhere. And
Was he quite well
just
known, Jack? Was his art? Was
reasonably.
he
I mean,
in galleries and things?
reasonably. He studied at the Royal Academy of Art in London, and won some medals there. So he was pretty well known, sort of exhibited in and around Mayfair and around the world really. So yeah, it was nice. And he sort of passed away 25 years ago. I was sort of at
Right.
the age of 16. So I kind of wanted to
God,
sort
it's
of
quite young,
bring
isn't
it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I really want to sort of bring a bit of his legacy into sort of what I was doing. And initially, the brand did launch as fine fragrance, as homewares. But we always wanted to. The goal was always to do fine fragrance. But because I wasn't from the industry, I came into it, and I didn't know any perfumers. I didn't know who to work with, and what ended up happening was it was kind of the thing that we could launch initially, and then the goal was to go on to fine fragrance.
So how did your dad's artwork feature, or how does it feature in the home fragrance? I think, is it somewhere on the design?
Yeah, so our first candles that we released had his artwork printed around the vessel,
Right.
and it was a beautiful candle. I think when you start a brand, you kind of, and any business, you kind of go into things naively, and we created these beautiful candle jars, but they were exceptionally expensive to create.
Were they?
Yeah, it was.
There's all that colour, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're all handmade in Stoke, by a pottery company, and just everything we sort of wanted to do, as sort of as high quality as possible. But obviously, that sometimes brings the cost to it as you're doing it in the UK. So that was a kind of limited edition run, and now the brand's evolved. We've got on a sort of a little bit more brand focused, and so a little more sort of our brand sort of aesthetic to everything we do.
And for people who aren't as familiar with RNDL, you've mentioned to me before that there's definitely a design language and a sort of art aesthetic to it. How would you describe the brand and what you're trying to do for someone who might be unfamiliar with it?
Yeah, so we always want it to be, the brand to be unmistakably RNDL. So everything we do is very, very heavily considered. We ensure that the visuals are as important as the smells and the products, and it all goes hand in hand. So yeah, we kind of see ourselves, sort of almost fashion forward kind of brand.
Yeah.
And along with the strong fragrances as well.
And you mentioned the move into fine fragrance, and I, as you said, I guess that's a difficult thing to come straight into. So what was that journey then? Was it about getting to know more people in the industry? It was always part of the plan to have fine fragrance as part of the collection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the journey has been amazing. Really, the people that we've met, the people that have helped us along the way. People like Roger Dove and Christopher Yu. We couldn't have done it without those guys. And Roger especially introduced us to the Fragrance Foundation, who sort of opened up this whole world of fragrance people that I never knew before and never met before. And then we sort of, with that, we met Christopher Yu, and these guys helped us sort of introduce us to fragrance perfume companies, manufacturers, all those kind of things, and it's just been sort of a community that's helped us sort of move forward. So it's been fantastic, really.
I think it's always really good to hear, because there might be this idea that that indie and niche space is is competitive, and I suppose it is. Like there's no shortage of brands, but it's always great to hear, and I've certainly experienced it too, how supportive and collaborative that space is. Because you were part of the Next Gen group, weren't you, with the Fragrance Foundation last year, which was all about mentorship and contacts and networking and training. So that must have been really invaluable to the brand.
Absolutely. And you kind of realize, because owning a business is it's difficult, and it's quite a lonely time. And you think that you're the only one making these mistakes. And actually everyone's making these mistakes. And when you meet other brands that are going on the same journey as you realize that you can help share your problems, issues, and successes as well. So it's actually it makes things a lot easier for everyone. And you're not all making the same mistake at the same time. We've got WhatsApp groups, and we have a call every couple of weeks, and it's a really fantastic group. And
that's exactly, isn't it? It becomes this support group, and as you say, people need it at different times and have different strengths, but it goes beyond the actual length of that Next Gen course. And it seems like it's become a really tight knit group, that first cohort. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
and it's really good to hear as well. You're talking about coming from outside the industry. It's great to hear that there is an infrastructure in place that can help people, and because not everyone comes from a dynasty of French perfumers or has all of the contacts, or you can see some situations where perhaps it's family money or it's contacts and all those things, but the industry is richer from people coming in from all kinds of different backgrounds and bringing that into fragrance. And that's definitely the case with you, Jack. You say you weren't from a perfume or a fragrance family. You mentioned your dad as an artist. So did you find it was a sort of tricky industry to come into?
I think initially it was quite tricky, but once I started meeting people like yourself as well, you tend to, I think people are so generous with their contacts, and they say, because it was Amanda Carter, who's another one that's really supported the brand over the years with the fair. But I met with her for a cup of tea, and she said, "Oh, you must meet Hayden." And it's all. People are so generous with putting people in touch with one another, and actually your network, if you're open to it, your network grows very, very quickly. And I think that's. So I think initially it took a very long time to sort of get to that point, but once that happens, it happens very quickly. And it's similar with creating our first fine fragrances. It took a number of years to build the brand up and get it to that point where we could work with the right perfumers that we were happy with, that sort of really got the brand. So it takes time up front, but then it starts to speed up.
Yeah, and pay dividends now. So you mentioned the fine fragrance. Circus is the newest release. There's 3 in the collection currently. Tell me a bit about Circus and how that one came about and where it sits in the collection.
Yeah, so Circus is it's a fragrance for when it's days that you need a bit of a performance. So you've got those sort of the big meetings, or something that might be a bit tough, but you want it's about. All the fragrances that we create it's about how it makes you feel. We want people to feel great when we're in the fragrance. They're big and bold.
Yeah, it's not a shy fragrance, is it? I've got it here actually, and I had a smell. There's a lot going on. It's as you say, it definitely demands attention.
Yeah, so it starts off with a cherry and a peach and strawberry opening. So it's quite fruity as it opens. But then it starts to dry down to a beautiful tobacco note, and it's got something called mate in, which is like a kind of a green tea, and it adds a hay note into it as well. So it's got a sort of a slight greenness to it.
It does, and that balances out as well, and makes it so it's not too kind of over sweet. I think you get those kind of more hay notes, as you say.
But we wanted it to be, life can be a bit of a circus sometimes, but it can be exciting, can be challenging, it can feel out of control sometimes. But it's about sort of being in control and having that fun and excitement. But like I said, it makes it. I want people to feel great wearing it. and that's always the sort of the key thing for our fragrances.
Yeah, it's something we talk about a lot, isn't it? That idea of fragrances being this cloak and allowing you to play around with different elements of your personality, or even to give you that confidence to have the personality that you want to have for a certain situation. And it definitely feels like one of those kind of fragrances. It would make your shoulders come back and give you an air of confidence. And it is, it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of, it sort of moves and darts around. So it's definitely a fun fragrance. And I love that dialogue between the sweeter fruit notes, but then the smoky tobacco base. I think it's really beautiful. And who was the perfumer on this one, Jack?
So it's Matthew Morvigna. So
who you've worked with before, right?
Yeah. So he's worked with us on Midnight as well, which was our sort of our first fragrance to launch.
Yeah.
He really got the brand and got the story and got everything that we were trying to aim for. And like I said, that took quite a number of years to meet someone of that quality.
And it's such an important relationship, isn't it? That perfumer relationship. And it's no surprise that brands end up working with a certain perfumer quite regularly, because once you have that shorthand and that dialogue where you understand each other, you might as well, it makes sense to carry on rather than start that whole thing again. And as you say, you sort of come back to him again because it's worked so well on Midnight. And Midnight is a finalist in the Fragrance Foundation Awards, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. We're still in a bit of shock, which is
it's amazing. Now what's the category? Is it best niche?
Best niche fragrance. So yeah. I mean the
congratulations.
The kind of, thank you very much. We're absolutely thrilled, and the list that we sort of got chosen from was I've got many of the fragrances on my shelf at home, and it's just absolutely thrilled. And to be among the finalists as well, it's just, I mean, it's like we've won already. It's the win being nominated. It's absolutely incredible.
But as you say, talking about brands like Goldfield and Banks and Byredo and Parfums de Marly in that same category, who, let's be honest, have got much more firepower and heritage and have been doing it for a long time. So it's a huge accolade, isn't it? I mean, you must be thrilled.
Well, just to be amongst those guys, and they've obviously they're very well funded now. They probably weren't in the beginning, but it's kind of everything we do. We have to consider the implications from a cash point of view, and it's all self-funded, and it takes a lot of work. So just to be recognised, to be on that screen with them is phenomenal.
So the awards are coming up. We're recording this in June, and the awards are coming up next week, end of next week. So it should be a great night, and I'll be there. I look forward to hopefully, certainly cheering you on the screen, and hopefully cheering on the win. But you mentioned marketing and doing it in a self-funded way. I'm really interested in that as an indie brand. How do you compete, and how do you find your path and make people aware of what you're doing when obviously there's the huge conglomerates, and there's even now some of the brands that perhaps seem still quite niche are often funded by big venture capitalists and investment funds and stuff. It must, to be a new brand and to try and get that share of voice and to get people to find out what you're doing, it's a big question. But how on earth do you go about starting that and making your voice heard and your fragrances smelt?
It's very difficult. It's probably one of the hardest things. You kind of as I mentioned earlier, when you start a business brand, you go into it naively, and you think if you make the product, someone's going to buy it. And
you build it, they will come, and all that.
Yeah, exactly. You think that, and I remember the first run of products we did. I was thinking, we're never. Is this enough? Is this going to be enough for people? And
they'll be like knocking down your doors, and be a long queue outside.
You slowly realise that's not the case. So it's kind of doing as much as possible at once. So turn up at all the events, try and do as many of the shows as possible. As the Barnes Fragrance Fair is phenomenal for us. speaking to people, Instagram, TikTok, all those kind of things, just trying to push forward and, trying to get your stuff in the press as well. Because
is social media a big thing for you? Because obviously in some ways that's that can be, if content creators are into the brand, that can be kind of sort of free media. Is that a big play in what you're doing?
Yeah, it's something we do put quite a bit of effort into. I mean, I'd like to do more and like to get more sort of followers on Instagram, which it does take time, but we wanted to make sure we're always on brand, and we want to make sure that we're doing things consistently. And when you build something organically, it does take time. And I find some of these that have exploded, we probably won't know about in the next year or two, and they'll disappear. And we want to build a brand that's around for a very long time, that people care and love about. We even have, which absolutely shocks me, is people buying our fragrances when they haven't smelt them. I couldn't imagine ever doing that myself, but people are sort of trusting the brand already, and we've only got 3 fragrances. So, that's fantastic. So it's just about being present in everything, and trying to do things as efficiently as possible, because there's lots of people trying to make money out of services and things that people sort of can.
You could easily spend a lot of money getting consultants and people on board, couldn't you? But you might not get it back, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I assume, because you have a business background outside of fragrance. Do you find that that's helped in you forming this brand and building it? Are you bringing your skills from your other areas into RNDL?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sort of, the majority of my sort of career has been in and around construction and sort of sustainable construction. So any kind of business has the same kind of principles, and you need to make sure that you align with those. So I think this sort of what I've learned over the years in that industry and other industries have helped me from the business point of view. Although it's different. There's different people to talk to. There's different attitudes. There's lots of different. It's different. It's different, but same.
But having that solid foundation in business principles is obviously critical, isn't it? So that you can,
exactly.
As you say, I think it makes sense to approach it that you're growing steadily and building your support base, and it's not going to be just a sudden kind of explosion, because as you say, that could just as easily fall away just as quickly. I think it seems a sensible approach.
And I think it's really important that I've got a co-founder as well. Matt Bagnall's the co-founder, and he's from a design background, and there's two quite different kind of businesses. And I come together and created this brand. So we sort of help one another out in pushing the business forward. So,
and it's useful, isn't it, to have a sounding board, but also to have that complementary skill set where you can come together and bring different things to the brand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So tell me a bit about, always in Man in the Mirror, always interested in people's morning and evening routines. And I wonder with you what that looks like, Jack, in terms of the products that you're loyal to when you're getting ready or in the morning or getting ready to go to bed. What are there certain products that you've got an affinity with?
Yeah, so I do quite a lot of running. So I'll sort of I'll go running in the morning and the evening, and so I'll obviously have a shower after that. So I'll use some sort of I know. So I have a sort of scented shower gels, and whether it's Molton Brown or Aesop or Byredo or something like that.
So it's interesting that you'll go for something quite premium like that smells good and has quite a projection, rather than the sort of £1 one from the supermarket.
I think it's just it's the sort of the buzz you get after running, and you're sort of in the shower and you have something really beautifully scented. You're sort of rubbing on yourself. It just adds to that sort of buzz of after the run. So I try and and I'm not sort of, I don't stick with one brand, for instance. It'll be a sort of number of them. So I like to sort of change it around a little bit. And then I'll have a sort of shave every sort of 2 to 3 days. And I use an Aesop shaving oil, which I've used for many years. Um, and then I'll always put on an SPF sort of factor 50 kind of face cream, because being a bald man, you have to protect the bald head
the
because
dome.
it burns quite quickly.
And is there a particular brand that you like in terms of SPF?
So at the moment, I'm using House of Joseon, which
I
is
don't know that one.
it's like a Korean brand. It's like a sort of made from rice or something like that.
Huh?
But I found it's because again, when running, when you're sweating, you sort of, if you've got an SPF, it often stings your eyes, and this one doesn't. So it is fantastic. So, and then I'll kind of use the odd sort of moisturizer or whatever as and when I need it.
Yeah. And in terms of fragrance, Jack, I know from our conversations before, you're a massive fragrance fan, but now having your own brand, do you find yourself having to be loyal to RNDL? Do you buy other stuff to try it out and see what's going on in the market? How do you approach fragrance now, or do you have to avoid it because of the work you're doing?
No, I'm constantly wearing all different brands, fragrances. I just love fragrance, and whether it's the sort of friends brands or whatever that have gifted me their bottle, or I've got many fragrances myself, and I like to. Again, sort of, I like to wear a fragrance. Sometimes you need a bit of a boost one day, and you'll wear a fragrance that gives you that boost. I do test a lot of our fragrances. So when we've got sort of, we're working on new fragrances, I'll sort of wear them throughout the day to see how they evolve. I tend to sort of wear our fragrances at events, and
of course,
so I do a bit of marketing. But yeah,
what did you go with today? What was your fragrance today?
So I've got Circus on today. So
good.
It's
me too.
It's excellent. I think it also inspires me for the next set of fragrances as well. You can kind of see. We don't really want to stick to trends, but you do get inspired by various different fragrances and think, I could really, this is what we're sort of,
I think
for the next ones.
Yeah, you have to keep an eye on what's going on. I do imagine that's quite a difficult thing, isn't it? Because the length of time it takes to develop and get something out, you don't want to sort of jump on something that then seems like it's 2 years ago. But you have to have a broad sense of where things are going, or where you think they're heading.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with RNDL, Jack, I've been to an event at Barnes with you and your brother. It lives in this world that's multi-sensory and brings in other art forms, and food is really important. We talked about art already, but food, you've done some workshops and events around food pairing with fragrance. Tell me a bit about that, because I love all these examples of when fragrance brands bring in other senses or other art forms. What's the relationship with food and RNDL?
I'm obsessed with food. I think that's why
we eat it. We like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I do so much running, so I can eat a lot. It's quite early on we kind of wanted to bring, because we was noticing how we wanted to get our fragrances in front of people, and we came up with a concept to be able to do that. And everyone, like you said, everyone likes eating, and we started putting on some supper clubs where we'd create dishes and canapes, etc., that were based around the notes in the fragrance. And it's
your brother's a professional chef, right?
Yes, so he's a fantastic chef. He's an ex-Michelin star chef, and he's actually a baker now. So he's works at a beautiful bakery in Cambridge. So that sort of, I got to spend time with my brother and also eat food and kind of combine it with fragrance. So it's brought people into fragrance that may have never been in fragrance, and we wanted it to be an open door for people to explore the brand and also the fragrances. So we're certainly going to be pushing it more in the future, and bring in just sort of, we want to bring in a little bit more visuals, sounds, touch, and all those different things, because I think it's so important to have that multi-sensory experience.
Yeah, I think it relates to what we were talking about a bit earlier. Is how do you form a sort of competitive advantage when other brands might have a bigger marketing pot, but being able to do something like that is fairly unique, and the skills of both yourself and your your brother and bringing that together. It was last year, I think, at Barnes. It was, and yeah, it was smart thinking because so people enjoy fragrance, people enjoy experimenting with food, and particularly at that sort of level. And as you say, it's just another way in, isn't it? It can bring people that perhaps might not be fragrance fanatics straight off, but if you can talk about the relationships between tastes and fragrance notes and bring people in that way, it just seems like a really smart thing. So yeah, it's great.
We kind of found this. We created some chocolates, and one chocolate had certain notes in, and another chocolate had different notes in. And what we found is it completely changed the fragrance, but then also changed the taste as well. Yeah. And it's kind of quite magical, really, to have that the difference. And we really want to work on that a lot more and see if we can develop that, because it seeing people's faces when they haven't smelt the cherry in the fragrance, but then it hits them around the face because they've had a chocolate that's got the cherry note, cherry note in there. It's great because people find it difficult to pick out the notes in fragrances, and quite rightly so, because they're all mixed together with all sorts of different things. But when you've got something that that focuses your brain onto that particular note, it just opens up the whole fragrance, and people start to get those notes because ultimately we're just looking at a list of notes that don't really mean too much to people, and it's difficult to pick out. So it's been fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to do. And so we're in 2026. You've got 3 fragrances now. You're obviously nominated next week at the Fragrance Foundation Awards. How does the rest of the year look? I mean, is it possible to always be, there's always people like me always saying, what's next and what's the next fragrance? And I'm always conscious that, there's a huge undertaking just to get one thing out. So, and let alone, as you say, it's self-funded. So it's not like there's some big Swiss bank pouring in hundreds of thousands of pounds for your next release. How do you go about planning releases and planning what the year looks like? And is there something coming later on, or do you have to be a bit more judicious about that?
Yeah, so there's never been we never sort of had a set release number of releases. We kind of had a loose figure of sort of 1 to 2 per year, but we would never release something that we weren't entirely happy with, and some happen very, very quickly, and you might work on a few modifications, and then some that work on lots and lots of modifications, and so it really does depend on that process. But we didn't want to just keep punting loads of fragrances out just for the sake of it. So we released Circus this year, so you might expect one more this year, and then one more into the next year. But it all depends on when it's ready. I mean, we've got a couple that we're working on with a very well known, very exciting perfumer, which I'm actually thrilled about. Which will be So aim for maybe one this year and then early next. But we'll consistently be working on new fragrances and launches.
And there is that piece as well around fragrances where, for retail, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it's a real pressure on brands that retail want quite a size to the collection. They can't just put 1 or 2 things in because they get a bit lost on displays, or they want the consumer to have a sense of what a brand is all about, and therefore you'll know far better, but generally they'll want 3, 4, 6 in a collection, won't they, before they consider physical retail space. Is that part of the consideration?
Yeah, massively. So I kind of realized that as well, that once we released Circus, all these shops started stocking us, and it was quite a challenge. I mean,
the 3 was the magic number then.
It was, yeah. It's funny. It was just the second that released it. The people we've been talking to for a number of years have said, right, we're ready now, and you can understand. Yeah, you can understand it because you want to see a shelf space, and it needs to sort of take up a reasonable amount of it. So, and then you hear from certain distributors and things like that saying you need at least 5 or 6. So you're constantly trying to get. So I'm sure when you've had 5 or 6, you'll need 10 or something.
Yeah, you're always running to catch up with the next thing. So yeah, I mean, I think it just feels like it's growing at a real organic pace, and it sounds like there's some really exciting things happening this year for the brand. If you're working with another perfumer as well, so it's really exciting. Man in the Mirror, as always, is about self-care and self-image, and I'm always really interested in what the guest thinks about the man that looks back at him. So maybe if you're getting ready in the morning and you're doing your morning routine, how do you feel about your appearance? Because I guess it comes up so often that we're in this industry where we do have to be on screen and we're photographed at places, and we're in the broader sort of beauty industry. What's your relationship with appearance and what looks back at you in the mirror, Jack?
Yeah, I think I'm happy with what looks back at me. I think I would like to lose a little bit more weight, because I think I'm really into my fashion, and I've got sort of, a huge wardrobe of clothes, and there's on occasions when you've had a bit of a weekend of eating too much, those suits are a little bit too tight. But yeah, I think I'm really happy, and I think you can't really change it, and
No.
I think there's, I suppose when I sort of was balding from kind of sort of in my 20s, you kind of tried to hang on to it for too long. But I think
did you then make a decision to, so I guess, 20s is relatively early to start losing it. Did you then make the decision that it's all going to go?
Yeah, I think it was sort of, COVID time when you couldn't get to the hairdressers, and I think it's quite a big thing for men, and I know it's got quite a lot of there's quite a lot of humour around it. But I think if it's sort of happening to you, you sort of don't it's quite hard, and I think taking that jump is really important. And actually now, what annoys me the most is I should have just done it when I was 20, because I think I'm really happy with the way it looks now. But you feel like you need to hang on to it a bit too much.
Yeah, I think. Well, may I say, I think you're one of those. You really suit. I mean, I didn't know you beforehand, but you've got a good head. I think you really suit being bald.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was often told that until you actually spend some time
good-shaped head
with it.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? And on the one hand, now I have conversations on the podcast about people are much more open about saying, oh, I want to have a hair transplant, or there's so much more information, as there is with everything. But at the same time, there's still that kind of blokey humor about just taking the mick out of people who, it just seems like an easy shot, doesn't it? People who are sort of losing their hair or have lost their hair. It's just one of those. But I think you made the best choice all round, is just to sort of own it and go, this is this is me, and I think it looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
And what about the things outside of work that bring you pleasure and bring you joy? Perhaps if you're not working on fragrance, you mentioned running already, and what are the things you do outside of the workplace, Jack?
Running is become so important to me. I mean, I've always been really sporty, and I played a lot of football throughout my life, and again, COVID was kind of that point where we couldn't play football, so I had to find something else to. I think my mind is. My mind's always racing with various different things, and I've found that running settles it down. So I do it 7 days a week, twice a day.
Do you? Wow.
Yeah, it really settles my mind down, and I find if for whatever reason, if I miss a morning or something like that, it really sort of affects the rest of the day. So it's become one of the most important things in my life. And then
do you use running?
Course,
do you use running? Do you feel like when you're running, it gives you time to think about other stuff, or is it almost this sort of the fact that you have to concentrate on what you're doing, you can slightly empty your mind and release? Or is it a bit of both?
A little bit of both. I always listen to a podcast or an audio book. So I listen to your podcast, obviously, on the way around. but it sort of does a bit of both, really. I don't think too much about the day ahead. I just sort of I listen to podcasts, and then sometimes you sort of go off into a world of your own for a little while. But I kind of really like exploring places as well. So if I'm sort of traveling for whatever reason, I make sure I sort of go out and explore the area. And So yeah, that's really important. It's fantastic, and of course, I've got I really like dining out and trying new foods and things like that, and the running allows me to do that a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned the fashion before. You always seem immaculately turned out. You're into designer fashion and you're into your clothes, right? Is it Tom? Is it Tom Brown? Is that
Tom Brown? Yeah,
Tom Brown? Yeah, you love a Tom Brown stripe. What is it about? What is it about? Yeah, what is it about the Tom Brown brand that you like?
It kind of really summed up me as a person. So
interesting.
Because I think because I'm very sporty, but then also I like to look really smart. You kind of Tom Brown combines the sportiness, but also the smartness. So you can have something that's sporty, but you do look very smart.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it just really got me as a brand, and I just completely in love with it, and it's such a strong brand as well, and that's kind of a lot of basis behind RNDL as well.
Yeah, and I suppose in a way, me recognizing that's like if I think about that brand, I generally think about you. It's almost becomes a bit, if you like that style, it almost becomes a sort of personal brand as well, doesn't it? And people associate you with a certain look, and it might be odd if suddenly you're just in, I don't know, a pair of jeans and a pink t-shirt. It might look, oh, that's not how I, you know what I mean? That's not how I associate Jack. So it becomes synonymous with the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Jack, thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting and hearing more about the brand, how it came about. Wish you all the luck for next week. I should be cheering you on from my table for midnight in the niche category at the Fragrance Foundation Awards. Circus is out now. Where can what you talked about being in physical retail now? Where can people find the RNDL brand in store?
Yeah, so the best place probably on our website, which is rndl.co.uk. But we start to be stocked in Brighton in Wild Iris.
Oh,
we've got
great. Lovely Kate in Wild Iris.
Yes, it's a fantastic place. And then there's a couple of stores on the south coast, so Perfumery and Co.
Oh, yes.
They've got a store in Ringwood and Lymington, which are beautiful areas.
Is that some New Forest way? Is that down that way?
Yeah. So, and then we've got a couple of stores in the pipeline which are going to be opening this year, which is really exciting. So, yeah, it's starting to really sort of evolve in that sense, and so. But yeah, thank you for your time, and it's been it's always been a bit of a dream to be on this podcast, and I've always supported.
I know
you're doing is fantastic. So.
You definitely have, and we've got to know each other a little bit, and you've always been very kind about the podcast, and it's been a pleasure to have you on. Jack, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks.